This was not in the script today, but I'm sitting here in the new BYD Shark 6 with Brett from Driving Enthusiast, another one-man band YouTuber, not unlike me, only younger and still, you know, vestigially attractive to women, etc. And this is a production spec car, and you should follow his channel too. What's really interesting to me is how much better this vehicle at the outset presents itself and feels than, say, first generation Japanese vehicles in Australia. You're probably too young to remember them, but you certainly remember first generation South Korean vehicles.
Yeah,
they were pretty much heaps of crap, and I would not categorize this in that way at all, you know.
Yeah,
but
yeah, it's true. It's the, you know, the first generations that came in that needed time to gather some data and do some testing and all that sort of thing, whereas this seems to be off and running straight away.
It's 90% of the way there, it seems to me. Like, in terms of the positives, the presentation is awesome. It looks great at the outside. It's got a huge tray. It's bigger than a Ranger.
Yeah, like
right?
it's overall 100 millimeters longer than a Ranger and 50 millimeters wider, I think. Yeah. So it's a big ute. And
it's got the acoustics of a freaking concert hall in here.
Yeah.
Like, it's quiet.
Yeah. Well, you look around, it's got like soft touch materials everywhere.
Yeah.
It's all pretty cool, and a bit of scratchy stuff low down, but it's, you know, it's not too bad.
And I'd have to say, it feels like a ute, like it's got a nice chunky steering wheel, and it's not effeminate. Yeah. I'm allowed to say that in 2025 still, I think.
Oh, who knows? But who cares?
Yeah, who cares? Exactly. Even more to the point. So this car is so close to being dead right that I've got only one major criticism with it, and I think you've got one major criticism, and I think they're the same criticism, which is they could have just done the extra 5% on the ride and handling refinement.
Yeah, definitely. Like, we're driving along a normal suburban road right now, little ripples and stuff, but nothing crazy, and I can feel absolutely everything. Like, if I was in a Porsche 911 GT3, that's great, but in a normal ute, I think it's just too firm. It's the finer details. We were talking about it before, that it doesn't seem to have good a management of the finer details, but then when you hit bigger bumps, it's not actually too bad.
Yeah, so when you're just driving down a road with little tiny defects, like patchwork quilt type roads, when you've got patches on patches on patches, like 2/3 of Australian B and C roads, it's terrible. Like, it's really harsh. And if you're just driving on at 50 kilometres an hour to work, or pick the kids up from school or go to the shops or something, you're probably not going to feel it that much. But as soon as you get out into these B and C roads, it's like ka-doon, 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 like this, on roads where it should be fundamentally more composed.
Yeah, and compared with other utes as well. So this, like other utes, it's got big tall tyres. That tends to absorb the finer details, I find. They've got big tread pattern and all that sort of stuff. And yeah, you drive down a road like this in a normal Triton, Hilux, whatever, and it rides pretty good. You hit these little reflectors even, and it's...
I'll hit some now, here we go.
Yeah, it's like vibrating through the cabin.
It is, something as trivial as that is quite a severe hit, and it's not attenuated the way it would be, as you say, in a Ranger or a Hilux or some vehicle of that nature. And to me, that's a great pity, because as soon as you go off the beaten track, as it were, you're going to notice this really rough riding sort of overlay over the top of what would otherwise be a very refined experience.
Yeah.
Like, we hit a speed bump a few Ks ago, and a little bit fast, just to see how it would perform, and it's fine on that. It handled it like a champion.
Yeah, which is interesting, because this is a heavy car. It's like 2.7 tons. So they've got to do, it must have been hard for the engineers to figure it out, but there are utes out there like the Ram and so on that are very heavy, and they still manage to be comfortable, but also not bone jarring over little bumps and so on. And by the way, we've got the tyre pressures at about 38 psi according to the dashboard. It's not like, we've got them blasted up to 100 psi or something.
Yeah, that's right. If you want to experience this general sort of, you know, driving experience, just get the tyres on your car and pump them up to like 138 psi, and it just drive down a road with minor defects, and it's kind of like that.
It really is. Yeah.
I think what they did was they've got this model in R&D, right, and they put in all of these parameters, like here's the location of the different heavy bits, the mass centroids of the battery and the combustion engine and the transmission and all of that stuff. And then they put in the roll center height and the roll axis, and then they sort of go into the matrix and ask AI, what springs do I need with that, and what dampers do I need with that? And you know, a computer model's pretty good at pumping out the first generation approximation for what you need, springs and damper valving and things of that nature. But in reality, you need a whole team to go out after that and subjectively analyse where that's at and just tweak it. And I think that's the bit that's missing. Yeah. You know?
Yeah, you reckon they just ordered 1,000 of those shocks, please, and then just chucked them on, not even get someone out here to actually test, or not even out here, just get on a road that's not very good and just do some testing, because I can't imagine an engineer getting behind the wheel of this, taking it on an ordinary road and going, yeah, that's fine. Like, it's not hard to pick up.
I'd love to go to their proving ground and see what the shittest piece of road is.
It must be like glass.
Well, it could be, or it could just be differently defective. They might have some rough roads with some big bumps.
Yeah.
And they might have a model that says, well, it's okay on these sorts of big bumps, and they might not really rate refinement over the small stuff as we do. Or they might sell it into markets principally in China where, you know,
the roads are pretty smooth in China, aren't they?
Yeah. Well, and I wonder why, because what they've got is like you go to a quote unquote small city of 10 million people in China.
Yeah.
Right. And I was in China recently, and they kept saying that. They kept saying, "Oh, this is just a small city with only 10 million." And I think, I live in Sydney. There's 5 million people, dude.
Yeah.
It's the biggest city in the country.
Yeah.
So they've got all this. When you talk about kilometres of road per capita, they've got a lot more per capita, you know, and probably the same sort of land mass as us. So in the most populous areas, their roads are pretty good.
Yeah. Yeah. So it just makes you wonder. But I think, I don't know, I reckon it's just calibration and tuning could fix, like, the fundamentals of the suspension, independent front and rear, obviously. So it's got good foundations. It just needs a bit of a tweak.
Yeah, and it's got a really stiff platform too. Like, the platform is really rigid, which I guess the plus side of that equation is that it makes it easy to tune. If you bother going through and jumping through all those hoops, you don't have to worry about the chassis functioning as a sort of de facto spring.
Yeah.
But if you don't get it sort of bang on, then it really is potentially a problem, because that any defects like these ka-ching we're feeling all day long now.
Yeah.
The platform transmits them straight into the cabin, and it's really obvious. And it would be a real disappointment for me if I bought this car expecting it to be as refined as it looks, and then I drove it in these kinds of conditions, and it was quite frustrating.
Yeah, and that's the thing too, like, because this is almost like an EV, that petrol motor works like a generator, so we're basically running an EV mode all the time, except now when the battery's pretty much dead.
Yeah.
So you hear everything, you know, with EVs, they're very quiet, so every tiny detail you can hear, and with this, you know, you run over a twig and you can almost hear it bouncing off the tyre and bouncing over the wheel arch.
Yeah, see, I think one of the biggest challenges to fixing this is going to be the chain of communication from consumers and reviewers, right, who provide feedback, and that would go principally to EV Direct. They're the distributor, aren't they, for BYD?
Yeah.
And then they'd have to decide whether or not they're brave enough and ballsy enough to go back to head office and say,
it would be hard,
Houston, about those springs and dampers. I think it's just the damper valving. It could probably be solved in just, I don't know, a week on location with the right dudes on the wrong roads.
Yeah. Well, it's like Hyundai and Kia a few years, you know, before they did local testing. Wouldn't they just get a batch of like 10 dampers and just try them all out? Okay, yeah, those are more suitable for these types of conditions.
Yeah, exactly. In R&D, they actually use these sort of modular dampers where they can change the valving pretty easily.
Yeah, right.
And just, so it's almost like a jig.
Yeah.
And you can just change the valving and see how it feels, and then iteratively change the valving again, and
Yeah.
then when you think you're bang on, you get a few manufactured and you fit them, and Bob's your mother's brother.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
Like,
Other than that, I think the car's pretty.
Me too. I love it.
Good. Like it's
got a sexy interior.
Yeah,
and it
looks
feels
really good. It's
The steering's actually really good. I find the steering for a ute, it's pretty precise. Feels good. It's got good weight and sort of feedback controls and all of that kind of stuff. So
yeah.
not too much wrong with it. It's just kind of disappointing. It makes me wonder if, you know, they spent a small amount of money, if it wouldn't be, the extra 5% might be a huge subjective improvement.
Yeah,
you know?
yeah.
Kind of like GWM's announcement yesterday.
Yeah.
With that dude, Rob Trubiani.
Oh yeah, the
I'm
Holden
gonna
bloke.
say.
Yeah.
Like that's an admission by them, and they've been in Australia for a lot longer than BYD, obviously.
Yeah.
But that's an admission by them that they need local suspension tuning because of the third world nature of many of our roads and the sort of first world expectations for ride and handling by consumers and reviewers and people of that nature. So
yeah.
that's pretty brave by them to get that signed off by head office. That shows that they're willing to concede that Australia's a big enough market to bother with.
Yeah.
And like when Hyundai first did that, the biggest hurdle was getting someone, the shot caller, whoever that is, in Seoul to listen.
Yeah.
Right? Because if you're not getting negative feedback from Seoul and you're a South Korean company, do you really give a crap what a handful of Australians say?
Yeah, exactly. Was the Holden guy? He took a Holden ute around the Nürburgring or something. Didn't he?
If memory serves, he is the dude who took the lap record away from Top Gear at the Nürburgring, but the lap record for a commercial vehicle.
Yeah, right.
He was in a Maloo ute, so pretty speedy like commercial. Yeah. But still, let's not take anything away from the dude. He can obviously drive, and he's got infinite pedigree when it comes to suspension setups too.
Yeah.
Because even though General Motors behave like card-carrying assholes in Australia commercially, one thing Holden was really good at was fundamental engineering like safety and, in particular, dynamics. Like, you'd go on a Holden launch, a Commodore or a Ute or something like that, and they'd take it down the crappiest dirt roads and it would feel really good.
Yeah. So that's the thing. So if you test drive one of these, you might only drive around the block or something.
Yeah.
And not really get to experience out in the country or out in the... It depends where you drive, I guess. If you only drive in the city, then this is probably not going to be a problem for you. But if your dealer's half savvy, what he's going to do is he's going to go, yeah, this thing rides pretty rough. So the sales dude is going to work out, or collectively they'll work out a nice smooth loop around the dealership, and you could go, this is quiet. This is lovely and smooth, isn't it? You know? Very luxurious.
Yeah, I love this. And then you're going to take it out to your brother's place out in, you know, the boonies, and it's going to be terrible. You'll be saying, yes, I've got to talk to the dentist about that tooth, and you know, just by virtue of being shaken all over. Right? So I don't know. I want to love this car, but I'm not sure I could live with the ride quality on these small bumps. I guess it might be an opportunity for old man Emu or Petters or someone like that to come up with not so much an off-road suspension tuning kit, but maybe an on-road one, because that's what it desperately needs.
Yeah, but it'll be interesting. I've heard that they're going to do a 2-litre version of this very soon.
Oh, that's right, yeah.
So they might update the suspension with that, but that does cause a bit of could cause a potential problem. If you've bought the 1.5 with the hard suspension, I think they're upgrading the towing to 3.5 as well, I think. So this is 2.5. That's
just to compete though, right? Keep up with the Joneses and say, no,
right.
Go to Buggery plug-in hybrid Ranger, we do that too.
Yeah.
But you're right, if you're the lab rat in this first generation of BYD Shark 6 experiments, and they release version 2 with a bigger engine and maybe it's got a better state of suspension tune, then generation 1's going to be basically worthless, or worth a lot less, isn't it?
Yeah. And I think these new brands, they're very fast at evolving, which is great in some ways, but I think it damages, or it can damage the resale, because it's just like, it's like an iPhone, you know, they come out with a new one every year, then they come out with the S version and all this. It's not, well, iPhone doesn't matter because it's only $1,000. This
Yeah, but they
is
come out with
$60,000.
the way it is with phones, it's like you queue up overnight and you get iPhone 32 or whatever it is, right?
Yeah.
So you get to pick up that shiny new iPhone, and you've queued up for, I don't know, 24 hours to be among the first.
Yeah.
And they come out with a new one so often that you basically walk outside and someone looks at your iPhone 32 and says, "You're still using that old piece of shit."
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
So if you're talking about the automotive equivalent of that, where the 2-litre one of these comes out in, I don't know, 6 or 12 months or something, and the resale value of your Generation 1 product takes a hit.
So you've got to, I mean, it is a bit cheaper than the others anyway. Kind of, like an SR5 Hilux is around 60 grand as well. But it's not a plug-in hybrid, it doesn't have this advanced tech, it doesn't have the space and the practicality of this, in my opinion.
Doesn't have a grunt either. I mean, this thing is a grunt machine.
Yeah, it goes good.
Like, you could overtake 1,000 Hiluxes easily. You know.
Yeah.
And then you could just get your license and put it in the shredder.
It's it's an interesting one. I think they've done well as a first crack. It's expected that they would have some. And this is what I try to explain to people too. When you buy something from a brand new brand, I know BYD's been out for a while, but
is currently prohibited.
They're not.
And there's that.
The safety systems are a little bit over the top too, but like they are in most.
Yeah, I don't think we can knee this vehicle in the slats too hard for that, because, you know, you're the kind of dude who picks up 2 new cars every week, right?
Yeah,
and
pretty much.
You've got a roll of gaffer tape in your pocket, right? And
literally put it over the camera.
And it's not part of your murder kit, right? It's it's just to put over the yeah. That's the one with the zip ties, and the bleach. But the sole reason you carry that around is to put over the driver stalking camera.
Yeah,
like,
of every car, not
on.
just this. Yeah, it's a stupid technology. I think they need to really refine that. It's just not proactive. It doesn't. I don't see what it does.
Well, it appeases ANCAP and gets 5-star is what it does.
Yeah. Whether it actually saves lives, I really question that.
Well, Brett, I think it was very brave of you to drop into the Fat Cave with a Shark 6 and risk excommunication from the distributors of BYD, but I don't really think we've shit-canned the vehicle too hard. It doesn't deserve that.
No.
What it deserves is one more week of R&D on the dampers, and I think this car would be extremely hard to criticise if that were to take place. Yeah.
The off-roading probably could be tuned a little bit, but
yeah, that's a calibration issue too, right?
I think, you know, people that buy these utes, how many of them actually go off-road and do super serious off-roading? You know, I don't think it's that many. As long as you take that into account when you're looking at this, you know, it's not as serious as some of the others.
You would feel pretty guilty, wouldn't you? Buy one of these and then just take it to some gnarly track and thrash its tits off.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
You really want to do that with your brand new $65,000 plug-in hybrid?
Yeah.
Probably not. I don't think it's aimed at, you know, your blue singlet beard stroker.
Yeah.
It's aimed at the family that wants a ute as a de facto family car, but also wants to do a bit of a green thing, you know, drive in EV mode to the school. And
which is becoming it's a popular market. Like, I've got a mate who's in IT. He's got a BT50 Thunder, has no interest in off-roading and no interest in camping and forward driving, but he's got a BT50 Thunder because it's a fashion thing, you know. That's fine. That's fair enough.
You don't have to justify owning a ute in the same way you don't have to justify a Swiss wristwatch or freaking designer handbag.
You're never going to climb Mount Everest or dive as deep as 2Ks to test out the water depth, but it's just a thing that we do, you know.
If you want a ute, you should be able to have a ute, and if you want it to be a plug-in hybrid, then I'm just glad it's available. I mean, this is the most exciting new ute for donkey's years.
I think it is, yeah. Like, it's even in the back, it's comfortable, it's got everything you need. The price is good. It's probably one of the most interesting new models I've been following since it's launched. Like, it's just, you want to know more about it. You want to play with it, and just when I got in it, I was looking at all these buttons and the touch screen. Although I don't like big touch screens, it's still got everything in there. You can really, spend a lot of time fiddling.
This
with
is
all the
not
battery
too
settings.
It's not like boom in your face. You know? It doesn't
yeah.
seem too bright either, so that's
Yeah.
pretty good.
Yeah.
All right, well, brave of you to risk excommunication in exchange for taking this appalling risk. I will link to your channel in the description. You should subscribe to Brett's channel. It's awesome. He tries very hard to tell the truth without, being excommunicated by the industry. But if you ever want any guidance on how to be excommunicated,
I know where to go.
I know a guy who knows a guy.